Okay, should we get started, Edward?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, it's 3:02 on May 21st. This is the meeting of the Architectural Advisory Committee. We ask everyone to silence your cell phones. Planning director, or in this case, planning manager, please, can we have roll call?
Hey, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the AAC. So the roll call. Member Doty. Member Jackway.
Present.
Member Lockyer.
Present.
Member McCoy.
Present.
Member Rotman.
Present.
Vice Chair Cassidy. Present. Madam Chair Song.
Present.
All right, thank you. We have full quorum.
Thank you. May we have the staff report on the posting of the agenda?
Okay, it's back on. Back on. Okay, so the agenda was posted on May the 17th, 2018, in front of the council chambers and at the planning department counter, consistent with the state law. Thank you.
Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda today? No? Okay, very good. Do we have a motion to move?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, anyone second?
Second.
Okay, Sean made the motion and Robert second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone
I abstain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that is within this committee purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time the item is presented. If you want to speak on an item that's not on today's agenda, you may speak now. You have 3 minutes. I believe everybody's here for a case, so we'll proceed to the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Does the committee have any comments on the minutes? Okay, if there's no comments, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes as submitted.
Thank you, John. Anyone second?
Second.
Okay, second by Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone
One
opposed?
abstention.
Thank you, Tom. Oh, two. So Tom Dozy and Robert Rodman.
Might be that we have too many mics on at the same time. Try turning your mics off, and then maybe that will solve weirdness that's happening over here.
Okay, so far so good.
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
All right. All right, so we're gonna move to unfinished business. Item number 2, conserve landscape on behalf of Palm Springs Church of Christ, requesting approval for a minor architectural application to convert existing landscape to drought tolerant. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the AAC. So if you recall, 2 weeks ago, this item was presented to you, and at that meeting, you had several comments regarding the design and then the proposed plantings and relative to the sizes of the plants and the placement of the plantings. So in all, the applicant has taken all those comments and recommendations that you provided they have made revisions. So that's what you're currently seeing on the exhibit, and they are also part of the exhibit that are presented to you. So the main layout, there are 2 pages. This is the first one that is showing 2 sections of the areas in question. The second page has the remainder of the 4 sections to be changed. A part of the comments that were made at the last meeting was to show or to indicate where windows are to be placed, and in this material, the applicant has done that. And also, one of the issues or concerns that was raised by staff regarding the 1-gallon plant sizes that were proposed have all been changed to 5 gallons. Also, the applicant has provided additional exhibits, the renderings that is, that will show how these plants will look like when they are matured or when they are grown. So I'll go ahead and show those exhibits. This exhibit here is the last or the original submittal that you reviewed on May 7th, just in case if you want to make a reference to that again. And this first rendering is along Avenida Caballeros, where the church is located. And as you can see here, the plantings here will show how the plants will look like and how the conversion itself will look like. This is showing the 4 sections of the site. The same thing, this one here is, this next exhibit is showing 2 sections. All these are in your package as well. And then here is one more exhibit that is showing the stained windows. And in your package, there is an excerpt of a book that talks about the designer of the stained glass, and then a brief background and history of the stained glass is contained in your package. And here is one more rendering that is also showing the wall where the name of the church, the sign bearing the name of the church is located. Here is an additional rendering. Here's also one more rendering showing the walkway leading into the church. So, Madam Chair, that will conclude staff report. Staff is asking the AAC to recommend approval of this project as submitted to the Director of Planning. But should you have additional comments or recommendations that will make this conversion even more successful, we will want those as conditions so that the applicants could proceed with the stuff conversion. For those of you that may have been at the site, you can see the current condition of landscaping. That is, we will want that to be changed because it's on one of our major thoroughfares in the city. Mm-hmm. So that will conclude my staff report, and I'm available to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Question for staff. Hey, is the applicant present? Please come up, state your name and address.
Hello, I'm with Conserve Land Care. My name is David Navarro.
I'm sorry, what was that?
David Navarro.
Okay. David, would you like to add to the presentation that Edward shared, or are you ready for our questions?
Other things that we did on this one that was a little different is that we were removing a existing palm off by the school area and an existing ficus. Also, we try to accent the existing olive trees with white roses, and we initially wanted to install a rubble path, but there is a bit of an issue with vandalism with school next door. So to supplement that, we're suggesting a DG path, or if the board recommends not having that, you know, and have it all be consistent, we could do that as well.
Okay, thank you, David. Questions for the applicant? I'll start from Member Tom at the end.
No questions.
Okay? Member Tom Dozy, questions?
Thank you for the presentation, David. I think the only comment I had was in the renderings, the agaves seem to be one of the main features that you're using, and to upsize those to like a 15-gallon size. And I think the pathway could disappear.
Tom, I had the same comments, so thank you very much. Member John.
I will concur with what's been said so far. Not crazy. I like the fact that you're changing out the ficus to an olive. That will create nice, be more cohesive throughout the planting plan. But the purple fountain grass, I understand where you're going with as an accent. It seems a little random at the south end of the plan. You have the olive tree and looks like a mound and just some sporadic fountain grass. And the other placement of it that I find peculiar is at the far north end, in front of the wall. You have the oleander along one wall, and then the other wall, you have fountain grass.
We could, you know, we could substitute those with other plantings. We could either continue with, you know, the neriums or whatever you guys, you know, would recommend.
The yeah, I think the continuation of nerium in that corner would be would anchor that corner in a much better sense. The miscellaneous fountain grass, the other part I'm not crazy about. I'll stop there.
Would a ground cover be better in that area? Like a lantana or something that kind of sprawls and kind of fill in the space?
You know, we're not here to design for you. I would, let's go through and hear what the other people have to say.
Okay, Member Sean.
Well, I have one question. What was the bender board material, or is there a bender board material or a divider between what you're proposing with the two different color decomposed granite?
Initially, we had suggested just to have it natural, but if you guys wanted it defined, we could always add a plastic edging, or if you guys see that it's necessary, we could do a steel edging on that.
Yeah, okay, so I would suggest some kind of edging if they have to be DG, but I would suggest that otherwise they're just going to intersperse and mix together, and it's going to look pretty bad fairly quickly unless it's maintained really well. But I think you said last time you won't be maintaining this project?
Correct.
Yeah, so I would suggest some kind of edge banding, or maybe this path or whatever become a completely different material, larger in scale.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure that the DG is necessary at all either, that maybe the whole thing couldn't be a bit heavier in scale, like a 3/8 or something like that.
Yeah, the only issue we have with using cobble or a rubble, or you know, is that there's been cases where there's been vandalism, and the church really wants to protect their stained glass. It's not just a stained glass; it's more of an art piece. It's irreplaceable. So to protect their investment or their best interest in that, we're, you know, if it's okay with you guys, we'd prefer just to go away with the, just forget about the DG and just have it all be one consistent color.
And scale. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, you're saying like the ground cover, not a DG?
Right. That is what I'm saying. Something larger in scale. So, but we can maybe talk on that a bit more. The other thing is, I think one of the comments that may have gotten missed in the staff report, or maybe just not 100%, communicated as I read through the staff report now also, and maybe the meeting minutes a few minutes ago. It seemed like, I feel like when we reviewed this a few weeks ago that we looked at a lot of different colors and things going on, that was a feedback item also. And before you answer, I think it's gone from a whole lot of stuff going on at that point to a whole lot of stuff going on at this point with color, with the bougainvillea, the yellow lantana, the euphorbia, and now an introduction of the roses. So I don't quite understand. It's definitely improved, I think, from last time when it was just that singular agave Americana was the main element in the center. But it still feels like a lot going on, trying to get a lot done here.
So I heard two things last time that we were here. I heard a comment from yourself saying that you wanted to introduce more material, and then I heard a comment from Maria Song saying that less was more and just more planting. So
let me clarify what I meant by more material, and I think I was clear on this last time, but I can be clearer now. I think what we're looking for is maybe a monotone color or texture or something like that without pinks and yellows and white and orange, which I think we saw quite a bit of last time. It looked like a lot of different textures, heights, maybe not always the best height also. I mentioned something about layering where you had something very small in the back along that back wall and then something much taller in front of it. Does that help clarifying? So I think one more second. I think what I'm saying now is that maybe just a reduction in the amount of colors. I think there's a lot of different species of perhaps agave or aloe or something like that I think could be a little bit better grouped, varying sizes of the same thing. I believe that was one of our comments also. Groupings of those together could go a longer way than
Okay, Member Rotman.
No questions.
Okay, Member Kenny.
Hi there. Could you share some comments about what was the thinking in designing or redesigning what's in front of the stained glass? I'm trying to understand what was the concept that you're trying to achieve there.
yeah, so we try to prop up, if we could go to that slide, maybe the third slide. So the idea was to show 3 agaves or 3 specimens for the whole the Holy Spirit, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and to try to accent that with the boulders, and then have the bougainvilleas kind of be a soft filler. The grasses, I just kind of wanted to screen some of the traffic that would go through that side, and then soften the walls with the vines, the Caliandra vines.
So, David, in the renderings, the boulders that you show versus what's on the schedule, about 2 to 3 feet. Some of these boulders, they look like they're 4 to 6 feet. So let me point out to you, for example, the one on the south side where you have the other agaves.
So it's like on the other side, right? Where the
Yeah.
Can we go to that slide, please? I think it's like 3. One more. That's the one, right?
Right. Yeah. Particularly so then at the edge islands did you want it to vary them in sizes, or did you want to keep them 2 to 3 throughout the whole site?
Realistically, they would probably be 2 to 3, and they vary in sizes. When we get them from the quarry, but they wouldn't be bigger than 3 feet.
Okay. They wouldn't be bigger than 3 feet. Okay. Okay. Good. And the reason for your pathway design was to break the foreground. Really, that's what you were trying to attempt to do? Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. All right, so it has been an improvement. The graphic actually help us to see what landscape materials are being put together. There are comments that have come up as far as the agave being sort of the feature, even if you see it in that rendering, that they're not 5-gallon, that they're more 15-gallon features. And I think that would help to create a intermediate scale landscape in between the sidewalk and then the building. There's also the comments about really the arroyo, the dry arroyo that is being created. I think it's a bit forced. And I think just having a continuous foreground actually would be more simplistic to the design, a better background to all the different landscape material that is being planted. The third comment that I think was made was about the having still too many colors that it's in the palette. So let's open up the discussion and be able to conclude on this project. So having said that, I'll start from this end with Member Robert.
Generally, I would agree that with the comments that the committee's made, and I definitely agree with the number of colors. And I was looking at the colors in the stained glass. I don't know how representative the photo is in the packet, but maybe use those as your guide for colors for the plant material. That would mean maybe eliminating the pinks. So you're kind of doing reds, blues, and yellows, and maybe a white. But, you know, I think the pink kind of seems foreign to me. So, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Member Sean?
Nothing further than what I already stated.
Okay. Member John?
I like this building. I like the simplicity of the building. I think it's a nice design in terms of its mid-modern lines are really good looking. Having so many colors and things pulling your eye down into the foreground and losing the building is some of where I'm coming from. Last time you had some comprosma on the list. It's a deep green spreading ground cover that very simple. There were very few of them on the plan. So quantity in terms of plant count of individual plants versus quantity of colors would be what I would look at. Maybe less variety, but more quantity of those to create a more gentle composition to really highlight the architecture.
Okay, Member Tom Dozy.
It's a tough one. I think that I don't have a problem with the variety of colors. I think the way David's made groupings of them, it creates a pattern in the landscape. And as you drive through, to most passerbys or, you know, the congregation, they enjoy seeing that color at different times of the year. So I'm okay with it the way he has it grouped. I think, I don't know if there's been any discussion about, instead of the decomposed granite, using 3/4-inch rock. We found on commercial projects, it's just more sustainable. I know it's additional cost, but in the long term, it seems to just work better for these large areas. And I think the way the mounding is done out there is going to be key to how the landscape installation.
Tom, also, should the boulders be more concentrated on the larger landscape area so that there's more usage of it in composition rather than, try to spread them all over.
I think, the way they're indicated on the plan, he's created some groupings with the agave and plants, kind of using the boulders to anchor those plants. So I think, those might be some adjustments that could occur in the field, but it appears, that he's used them to anchor some of the plants, which I think is good.
Thank you. Okay, Member Tom.
I think it's a great improvement from what we saw last time, and I think they listened well to our comments. We're following up with a few fine-tuning on those things. I think if you stick with the decomposed granite, I would recommend that it just be one color. The kind of meandering, what appears to me to be a walkway to nowhere, unless you're using it as a foreground just in front of the stained glass possibly, but not on the other side. And I agree with all the other comments. I think that increasing the size on the agave would be important. And I'm kind of more in tune with Tom Dosey as far as the color, that the groupings, one grouping is one color, and then we have several different groupings. So it doesn't bother me that we have multiple colors.
Okay, so I'd like to wrap the comments and get a motion in place. I think there are several suggestions that have been made that could go either way, that I believe that the staff can work with the applicant. But I think in general, it is an improvement. If it is a matter of removing a couple of colors or keeping the colors, it's something that I think the staff can work with them. I think to be clear on what our comments are to the applicant and to the staff will be important. So Member Sean, do you have a motion?
I was going to ask one more question. I may need their input on this. Is the 3/4 rock size a problem with the vandalism that?
We will put that as a condition of longer longevity to the project, and the applicant with the staff will have a chance to respond to that or work on that together. But to debate if 3/4 inch is an issue or not, our experience has been that it's not an issue. It's actually a long-lasting material. So it's an investment worth making.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe the point might have been that if they install 3/4 inch or any other size rock out front, that the kids at the school might pick them up and throw them towards the stained glass, and that was the vandalism concern.
I understand, but 3/4 inch is not necessarily, there's variations up to 3/4 inch. Or I'm sorry, we can go with 3/8 inch, which is really, 3/8 inch. But the idea is that we wanted something heavier so that the DG doesn't end up just being bare and then you'd see the native within 3 months of this project improvement. Okay, so do we have a motion? Do we list all the conditions, Edward?
Yes, so if the motion is to move the project forward, I will want the very specific conditions so that we will know how to enforce those.
Okay. Why don't I list the items that we agree on, and why don't I list the items that we are not on the border about, okay? And then we can have a discussion on that. So we're agreeing that the walkways that are being created are to be removed. And if they do want to highlight an area in front of the stained glasses, it could be more of an area rather than a walkway to nowhere. Two, that the agaves, the size of the agaves should be at 15 gallons so that they are a feature to the landscape design. 3, that the location of the boulders will be to anchor the major plantings, that they use it to anchor the major plantings. 4, that the I'll start stating the items where the current proposal for the planting seems to be acceptable, and there's a side note about maybe 1 or 2 colors being too many. And I think that's it. Have I left anything out?
Yes,
I'm
okay.
sorry, the DG. So 1/3 inch, it's right, less than 1/2 inch, so that the material weighs on the landscape area, rather than DG. Okay, so other than that, so what we're on the fence is about the number of colors of the landscape palette, correct? Okay. Okay, so there's a motion, there should be a motion that stays with the colors, and then there could be an amendment if the majority decides not to keep the number of colors. Okay, so Member Tom, do you have it?
I'll make a motion for approval with the comments stated, and that the colors be in groupings as presented in the plans, as submitted.
Yes, thank you. Do I have a second on that?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving to new business. Gulf America Group, owner requesting approval of a major architectural application for construction of a single-family residence at a hillside lot located on 2465 Winter Sun Drive, Desert Palisades. Specific plan, staff report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. As noted in your staff report, this is another single-family residence in the Desert Palisades specific plan. This particular area of the city, by its zone designation, is environmentally sensitive, and as a result of that, the projects that go through evaluation and approval have a series of additional standards and guidelines against which they need to be evaluated, and that is what you're seeing in this 25-page staff report. I'm going to go through briefly. I seem to have a bit of a hard time always talking and chewing gum with these slides, but I'm going to try to go through these and then answer any questions you may have. At the end of this, if we can get our audiovisual to work, and Jerry is our stellar coach on that, the applicant has a video graphic that will also further characterize this project. So this is on lot 24, which is toward the northerly part of the Desert Palisades specific plan. The lot slopes basically roughly 20 feet from the northwest side to the southeast side, and as you can see here in the grading plan, there is an area of retention toward that lower part of the site. The home is basically stepped to respond to the topography of the site, and it is essentially, by its design, a steel post and beam type of construction. The exterior of the home is proposed in mostly weathered steel with the structural members in a black painted steel. There is also board-formed concrete that's used for several of the retaining and garden walls and the stem walls upon which the house is built. This is the south, I'm going to refer to it as the south elevation, but it's really kind of the southeast elevation. This is really the back side of the house. And here again, you can understand the hierarchy of the spaces, both internally and on the way that those internal spaces are articulated on the outside of the house. So the main structure, which is the tallest, is the living room area, and then the area in this photo to the left would be the bedrooms, and then toward the right are the kitchen and immediate areas of the home, and then immediately in front of it in this particular image is the pool and hot tub area. So this is a rendering showing that backside of the house, and it also helps you understand how this house basically follows the contours of the lot. Toward the right side of this particular slide, you can see that's where there's a carport and a two-car enclosed garage. There's a trellis structure behind that, which provides shade as well in that particular area, and the trellis materials are also in black steel. This is the east elevation of the home, and here you can see the various terraces and the diagonal member there as the stairs that are heading from the various levels down to the pool terrace. The individual freestanding structure there to the left is a covered shade structure that's adjacent to the pool. This is the view from the lot uphill, and I asked the applicants to put this together so that you understand that this house really is hugging as closely as possible to the natural terrain of this site. It's a low-slung, very horizontally oriented home. And as you can see, it basically is settled down into the landscape as much as they could, which also helps them conform with the overall height limits that are imposed by the Desert Palisades specific plan. This is then the uphill side as well, basically what we would call the west elevation, and there you can see the pool pavilion shade structure off to the right. On the roof, you'll notice in this image that toward the bottom, which is the bedroom wing, there are photovoltaics. The applicant, from the time that I wrote the staff report until today, has provided revised drawings, and I'll get into a couple of the items on my recommendations, but most of the items that I had conditioned on my recommendations, they've already responded to in a favorable manner, so I'll go through that in a minute. And the interior of the home, again, you can see here the structural grid that's laid over this house is very classic in terms of its modernist form and the way that that structure defines the various spaces of the home. Oops, sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. Here you see the home in section, and again, it's a little bit tougher to read here, but as this home moves across this lot, it does step with the topography, and with the stem walls, it's literally just barely floating above the natural terrain, and the applicant will explain a little bit more of that to you, but it has almost no grading required in the way that they've designed this home. This is a couple of the elevations, again, the front elevation at the bottom and the rear elevation there at the top. And some site sections through as well to help you understand the top one. You can see those board-formed concrete stem walls and their foundations that are setting across the site. And then these are the same sections cut in the other direction. This is a three-dimensional image that the applicant put together, and they'll explain this a bit further to you as well. As we noted, there's a considerable amount of glazing on the south and east side of this home. And one of the things that I asked them to provide was information that helps substantiate that that glass has a decent amount of roof to cover it, especially during the early morning hours. And this is, as you can see, taken at 5:25 a.m. It's one of the most open or exposed parts or periods of time of the day. And interestingly, as you can see, the kitchen media wing that's in the foreground actually has a very effective ability to screen and control the sun coming into the main living room. So it's quite effective in that regard. This really addresses simply site lighting. There's some very low ambient light that's walking along pathways and so on, and a small amount of uplighting to highlight a couple of the specimen trees. And that's the end of that part of the presentation. I want to just go back a moment to the opening recommendation in my staff report. The issue on the policy on screening, the applicant has revised the photovoltaics on the roof so that they're laying more closely to the roof, so that will not require additional screening. They will be submitting to us an additional revised plant palette. As you'll note in your staff report, some of the species that they were proposing are not within the palette that was approved with the Desert Palisades specific plan. So they'll be bringing in a landscape plan with some alternatives on the material there that will conform. And as you saw on the landscape plan, if I can go back to that a minute, see how effectively I can get back there fast. guess the wheel is spinning. The landscaping, here we go. The landscaping, as you can see, is generally the naturalized condition of the site. The tan-colored things are obviously lots and lots and lots of rocks. And in certain areas where they've got protection and where they're basically surrounded by either the trellis structures or the structure of the home itself, they've created some small formalized planting areas. They're not seen from the road or from elsewhere, but they do provide an interesting contrast of, in a formal geometric way to the naturalized scattered condition of the overall lot. Everything else in terms of the recommendations you see there, they have actually responded to in the most recent set of materials, and so they're no longer an outstanding issue. The full analysis, I'm not going to go into the exhaustive detail, but on beginning, I believe, on page 8 of your staff report, it gets into the full analysis of this project against all of the various guidelines for Desert Palisades, for hillside development, for architectural review, for the underlying ESASP zone. It's all there. And as we have evaluated this home, we believe that it is consistent with not only the specific development standards, but the overall spirit and intent of the Desert Palisades specific plan. So we're recommending that you recommend approval to the Planning Commission of this project. I'm available to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is in the audience and would like to make a further presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. So can you clarify on the landscape plan, are you bringing back a final landscape design?
No, the landscaping is pretty much as you see it here. I'm not asking for revisions in the overall design of it. What we found was that there were a few particular species that are not listed within the approved plant list for Desert Palisades. The most obvious example is the ocotillo, but there's some other types that are simply not within the design palette. So we're not looking to change it. We're not looking to resubmit it. They're simply going to change out a couple of the plant species that aren't on the list with some that are on the list.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, is the applicant here?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Bob Smith. I'm the owner of Lot 24. I don't want to take a lot of my architect's time here, but just by a little bit of history, our firm, MSA Consulting, which is my day job, some of you I know from that work, first engaged with the developer of this site back in 2004. So we have a long history of Desert Palisades. It's one of the projects that we're most proud of out of all the work we've done over the last 40 years. And we started with the specific plan, the EIR, helped with the design guidelines, did the Chino cone ordinance. So we have a long history with this. Actually took it all the way through the design, engineering design, and the construction. And so at the end of this, in about 2017, the developer approached me about the possibility of going one step further, which involved building one of the homes. And it came at a time and aligned with my plan to start a small family business with my son, so the timing was good. And Ed Freeman, the developer, introduced me to Ray Cappy, who is an icon in the architectural industry. So the chance to commission with Mr. Cappy and to work with my sons on this project got me to this point. So we've been working on the project to this level. What you see in front of you today is the result of that work. I'd like to just briefly introduce the team here. My son Byron, Tom Lynch, who is the construction manager, is familiar, probably the person most familiar. He probably knows where every boulder is buried out there, having been out there for several years. John Pedalino is our general contractor and longtime client, friend of mine. And next to me is Finn Cappy, representing the Cappy Studio, and Finn's going to present the architecture. So we'd appreciate your support today. We'd like to move this on to Planning Commission as soon as possible, and appreciate Ken's help in putting the staff report together. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Bob.
Hello, my name's Finn Cappy, Madam Chairman, members. Bob mentioned that he's starting this is kind of an opportunity and a launch pad for a family business, and we know something about that with my dad, Ray Cappy, and myself, and my brother's an architect as well, so we were really pleased when they addressed us to work with them. It seems like it's been a really good fit so far, and we're looking forward to going further. Ken, thank you so much for that presentation. It's really complete and strong. I don't have too much to add to it other than on the broader scale of things. When Ray and I first came out to Desert Palisades about 3 years ago, I don't know if you've all been out there or not, but it's really, really beautiful place, and Sean has put up a wonderful gatehouse to sort of set tone, and we were thoroughly impressed with the sensitivity that the whole development was being done by Ed Freeman and his company and with support of MSA. Very unusual project, and reminded us of other great projects around. In LA, there's some projects like Mutual Housing in Brentwood, and some other things like that that are in the hillsides, and it just has a kind of super special feel. So we were honored to be asked to be a part of it, and Ray's sorry he couldn't be here today. His health is not great. He's not traveling much. Sends his regards to everyone. And I think he feels that we've put forward a good project that will contribute to the overall legacy, great legacy of modern residential architecture in Palm Springs. Neutra's work and Albert Frey and others, Lautner. This is sort of, it's just a little house, but you know, he does them really, really well. And I think that the post and beam vernacular translated so nicely to steel and to following the topography of this specific site. So just to give you a quick view of an early white model, I think we have this. And it will, that's how it's sighting. Winter sun is on top. Sorry for the mild whiplash here on this first move. This is the entry view from the roadway. Now this is showing the house fitting under the envelope. This is the road view, front view, north. Coming around to what we call Project West. The compact side that Ken referred to relative to the neighboring property. Coming around to Project South, it drops away, the land drops away, and this ravine, there's a natural ravine that runs through the property. You can see it right here. It slides up through and under the house and actually exits. That's where there was a split under this square bay window. There was a split in the stem walls to allow that to roll right through there. There's not much water in it these days, but we still wanted to really respect that aspect of the landscape. Some of Ray's best work really deals with minimum footprint and tough sites in terms of their slope and topography. And this is not extremely tough, but the kind of step levels and so on were a natural way to make it fit the site. The spillways, by the way, that you see there, a couple spillways out of the spa and then out of the pool, these are ending up falling into that ravine, so symbolically reclaiming the waters of that age-old area. In the fire pit area, which was right here, the owners wanted to have kind of an art piece exhibit that honored the Agua Caliente Indians of this area, because right next door in the open space there was a kitchen, not the kitchen, but the mitten, where there's sort of like the cooking and all this sort of thing. So I thought that was a really great idea too. And I was at the gas station this morning on my way out here, and I'm filling my car with gas, and the guy next to me pulls up in a pickup truck, and there's this like Indian chanting going on coming off of his radio. You know, it's really kind of great compared to hearing some hip hop blasting in LA. So I think it's a proper idea for this area. I understand why he wants to do it. Let's see. I talked right through that, didn't I? Let's see. See if we can go back just a second. This, after this reveal happened, you can see that this is the bedroom wing here. There's 3 bedrooms. This is the entry in the middle. As Ken suggested, it's the tallest space, entry and dining and living room, and the deck out to the pool area. And then stepping down 2 more feet is the breakfast room, the kitchen, and the media area over here. This is service, laundry, and then there's this internal stair going down to the enclosed garage, carport, which connects to a screen patio, and then stepping down to the fire pit area again. So this exhibit will exist somewhere right around here. So it relates to the ravine and the spillways and out to the long view across the, further down the canyon. This is a section perspective showing you how the building will hover over the property, stepping down the slopes. This is a cross section going the other way through the entry, dining and living room. Just the last couple of images sweeping around the outside of the house. Again, that's the opening for the ravine on the stem walls on the left. So the house has a couple different characteristics: more closed from the front, stepping up on the street side, most compact where it's faced by the neighboring property, and then opening up quite a bit on the private side, on the south side. I think that's it for this. Okay. Ken, how do I get out of this? Right there? Is that it? Oh, not yet. Okay. Upper right. Thank you. Okay, that's almost it. What else? Do we have a... Yeah, that's all. I think you shared the other images, which is great. All the perspectives you shared. So let's just... No, I don't think so. Maybe if there's questions, but this little solar study, why don't we run it real quick? Very fast. As Ken described, it starts 5:40 or 5:20 in the morning. We get a slicing sun. This is June 23rd. And then pretty quickly at about 7:45, we're in shadow totally on the inside, you'll see. So we were happy to see this. I mean, we knew this, but we were happy to see this.
I think we can start with our questions, and then as we need to see more, we could see the rest.
That's it. Good, great timing. I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so questions for the applicant, starting with Member Tom.
Couple of questions. Overall, I think it's a great project, first of all, but as we look at the roof, the eave looks very, very thin, and the roof structure looks very thin, and we're going to be seeing the bottom of those overhangs a lot. So I would just like you to maybe explain a bit on what the section is through that roof there.
Sure. The idea was to maintain a very thin fascia, exactly what you're saying and what you're seeing. So that's only going to be 6 inches. It's a perimeter gutter system all around the building. And the structure is, the structural engineer really liked this because he could do everything out of post and beam steel and then metal decking. And on the roof, we have rigid insulation on top of that, tapered rigid insulation. On the bottom, we have plaster for the ceilings. And that's the same system we're using on the floors. He's got metal deck and concrete fill. So it's a really, really consistent structural system, isn't it? And he pushed a little for it. We wrestled around a bit, and then we went with this, and it seemed to work quite well. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Have you done a preliminary Title 24? Do you think, is this complying?
It's compliant.
It's amazing with the amount of glass and the thin structure.
Yeah, well, the insulation values are all there, and the shading of the overhangs helps, and you don't get away with single glass. You've got double pane glass everywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Tom Dozy.
I think they've done a beautiful job. The proportions and the way the structure integrates into the site, I think it's very well done.
Member John.
No comments.
Okay. Member Sean.
Hi there.
Hi, Sean.
Just where are the downspouts, and can you explain that gutter system to us a little bit?
The gutter system, as I mentioned, is all around the perimeter of the roof, and downspouts we're not using, so we'll be using rain chains to drop the water into architectural catch basins at select locations. Also, because the roof's roof step, you can drop water roof to roof so that those rain chains occur at nice locations.
And the roof color, what is the roof membrane material?
Well, it's a TPO, and it's going to be tan or better than that if we can get that. You know, I'd like it to be browner than that, actually, you know, but that's a Title 24 thing, and maybe we can talk to you about that, how to get a nice-looking roof out there with the compliance issues.
Okay, Member Robert.
Nice project. Couple of questions, though. From the carport to the fire pit, what is the screening, or what happens between those two areas?
That's right there, you're looking at it. So that is a sliding glass door. So it's a kind of a convertible space, isn't it? So a car could certainly be parked there, but if it's not, you can open that up and have it right on through. So it's pretty airy and breathy for parties or what have you, or whatever you might want to do. It's just flexible space.
And then in the model fly-through that you did, it looked, and maybe I misread it, it looked like the ravine that you talked about, kind of that the pool sat like right in it. And so could you maybe bring that up and sort of talk about where the ravine actually goes in relation to the pool?
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see, how do I move, where are we here? That's one. Do I want to go? There we go. But thank you. I can barely see it. You did it. Okay, yeah. Good question, and a sensitive question, because we didn't really want to put a dam right in front of the ravine that we're trying to poetically express and give breath to. So we're close to walking the line here, I would say, because the ravine is on this diagonal. So we wanted the tip of the pool and this spill to be right there. But then the ravine kind of undergrounds and disappears as it slides under our raised decks here.
Okay.
So that's as good as we could do to kind of like get things done here and get the amenities that were in the program developed and still kind of reclaim it. So we couldn't completely stay off and away from it, but we tried to kind of enhance it and support it.
But there is adequate space for flow of
yes, there is a manner that the water can work its way under and through.
Okay. And then what do you see for the fencing around the pool area?
There's on the landscape plan, there's a proposal for a Corten weathered steel fence barrier, which moves out further away from the pool. It's actually, let's see, that would be the first slide, wouldn't it? Oh, it's not on. Oh, yes, it is. Can we zoom in on this? Yeah, here. So we're kind of pleased with this suggestion by Russell for landscape because we think it has a good chance of being delicate in the landscape and not kind of enclosing the pool perimeter directly. So this is the line of it here. You can see where the cursor hand is. Mm-hmm. This sort of dotted line that steps and staggers around the property here. So those are open 2x2 cortan steel posts, basically, that will rise up vertically. So you can see through it. It'll have the rusted tone, so sort of blend with the landscape. So if you have some boulders and some of the desert landscape mixed with this open fencing that steps naturally around, we hope it decomposes into the view, but creates the kind of protection that's required.
Okay, great, thank you.
Hey, Member Kenny. Couple of questions. So the mechanical system, is it underground?
Not quite underground, but under the house.
Okay.
The feed system is ducting that works from underneath the raised house and then pushes in through the flooring.
Okay, and so your condensers and compressors will be located?
We have a location off of the carport here, a sort of shielded area. There's a cantilever of this carport here, and there's a couple small things located there, and the other mechanical is under the house at this side, right here.
So you'll have some sort of access?
Access and not visible, yeah, right.
For maintenance and repairs and so on?
Absolutely, because the house is lifted off the ground there by about 5 feet, 6 feet, so we get to make use of that.
Okay. Then the slide where there's actually the pencil sketching on the planters shows, are you planning to use the same 6-inch form for your flat work?
6-inch form like the board form?
Yeah.
No.
So what is the type of material you're using for your flat work, concrete flat work?
Oh, concrete flat work? Well, such as this area right here around the pool?
I'm sorry, from the main entrance, from the main street.
Okay, so we have the outer court, which is concrete, and we also have this bridgeway here, which is concrete?
Right. Is that concrete treated any differently than your regular 4-inch slab?
Not so much.
Right.
Probably just either light sandblast or a light kind of sand broom finish. And then in this case over here, this is a detail where there's a little split in the driveway, and it's filled with compacted rock or decomposed granite, so it doesn't make too much of a rumble bump, which Ken warned us about.
Did you have a consideration of using pavers in that area at all?
This area here or the entry?
Anywhere in the area?
Anywhere?
Yeah.
Not so much pavers, because some of this needs to be structural. Like this walkway is partially off the ground. So we need the structural characteristic of the concrete to bridge a little bit. Mm-hmm. And we like to kind of limit the amount of materials we're using, for instance, inside to outside, and just keep that going, but handle that in a tasteful manner where it performs differently in each location. I don't quite know where you're going with
this.
I
mean, it's such a amazing structure, and the formwork that shows these sort of linear patterns in your retaining walls, and then I look at the flat work concrete that comes from this driveway that has sort of these earth tone patterns and concrete and exposed granite that you pour, and then all of a sudden it stops and then it goes into this flat concrete.
I understand.
So I thought it was a bit odd that there wasn't. So when you were saying about, did you say power washing, or was that my imagination? Acid washing, or?
It'll have a finish to make it a little less urban, which sounds like your concern, that all of a sudden this very sensitive special development that we love, now we're stepping off the off of the side of that street with its brick pavers, and now all of a sudden we have the worst of subdivision with this concrete walkway going
And
into
then you
this
have
nice
this beautiful
house.
structure, cantilevering, yeah.
That doesn't work for you.
Okay, and then the last question was sort of in the cantilevering sort of structuring that's happening, you're really leaving the site as it slopes. There's no sort of infill happening underneath the house.
No, as little as possible.
Right, so some of the renderings where you actually see a gap between the concrete platform and then the native, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh. Yes, Member Sean.
Just one or two more questions here. The fencing, I think that someone else was asking about a few minutes ago. Was that the 2x2 you said? That's not currently on the site plan that we have?
It's on this plan right here, on the landscape plan.
See. And the mechanicals there also? The yard you were pointing out a couple minutes ago?
I don't think that's on your plan. This one you would never see, the second one I pointed out. The first one was just, I believe, 2 condensers we talked about off the carport? Yeah. That's just under development, Sean, right now. We're meeting with MEP, and, you know, we're waiting for approval so we can push on. We've been going through construction documents to try to fast track a little bit, but we're not done.
Yeah, a little bit of a catch-22 here with that process.
Yeah.
One more question. The finish on your renderings on the sides of the pool, that looks like another cast-in-place concrete wall?
On the sides of the pool, board form concrete is what we're after.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Hey.
Bob had one more quick comment. No? Good? Oh, okay. Thank you again.
So I'll start with Member Robert on this side. Comments on this project?
I like it. Yeah, I don't really have any comments. I think it's a beautiful project and well thought out.
Okay, thank you. Member Sean?
I was hoping you would go first and talk about maybe the exposed aggregate concrete that I think you were alluding to, or softening up or renaturalizing some of that hardscape in the front yard, potentially maybe the rears or something like that also, I think is what you were saying.
Yeah.
Also, I guess if this project, and maybe it's more of a question for staff or you, Maria, but if this project gets recommended for approval, and there are some changes or developments or tweaks or enhancements to this site plan and mechanical equipment enclosure, is that something that staff would approve with conditions now, or is something we would see again?
The issue of the mechanical equipment for the condensing units is required to be screened. So we'll review that at the time that the revised drawings come through before Planning Commission and condition it accordingly. The pool equipment, as he mentioned, is in an area that's underneath the actual structure of the house, so that won't be visible when you're seeing it from the street.
Mm-hmm. And then my other concern is the fencing and that zigzagging, which I think was some attempt at maybe naturalizing the way that fencing is laid, but I don't want to put words in their mouth here, but it appears that that's the attempt, or maybe this is schematically shown and trying to work with the terrain or the contours, but it looks like really clearly defined around that perimeter of the site, at least along I believe it's the southern half of it, southeastern. It'd be nice to try to minimize the amount of fencing required or used in a way where it could just be done a bit more naturally, like we've been able to do at a couple other places up and around that area. More boulders and less built material, looking so rigid in lines in such close proximity to a property line.
Member Lockyer, is it something that you would see it bringing it more close to the actual pool deck itself, so it's not out near the edges of the property, or are you all, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ken.
No, I was going to say, are you saying actually to integrate it with boulders to create the pool barrier?
Both.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, or eliminating it, a third option is eliminating it where it's maybe not needed at all.
I think you have that on your report about no fence.
The pool barrier is going to be required by the building code as long as there's a 5-foot barrier on the outer side. How they achieve that, though, it just simply has to be so it's not climbable.
Yeah, but I think I read somewhere that you're achieving that through the use of boulders. Was that, did I imagine that?
No, I don't think so. As I understand the design, and Bob or someone, if you want to come up and clarify more, the lines that you see on this site plan, and I'll jump over and move this up further so you can see it, is where they're proposing to place the fence or the pool barrier. Let me just run over there to the podium, or Bob, do you know how to make that thing zoom back out, or you want me to jump over and do it?
That little minus sign up there at the left.
That guy?
Yeah.
While we're doing that, I agree with the comments. Sorry, that was the wrong move. The line that was shown there, Sean, is not the intent. The intent is for this to be an organic kind of. In fact, we were talking this morning about the best way to do this would be actually in the field at the time of construction because of the terrain. We don't want this fence to be out by the property line to be mistaken as the property line. That's not the idea. And if we can use boulders instead of the vertical members and still get approval by the appropriate authorities with the ordinance, we would do that too. Your comments align with our concerns there, so. Yeah, I mean, this is way too rectangular for what we envision. What we didn't want was what we've seen up there, which is an afterthought with a pool fence around what is otherwise a great pool arrangement. We're trying to come up with a creative way to avoid that. So we could work with staff on our landscape plan, and maybe we'd actually need to do some more field work where we can actually locate where that would be, but we're envisioning it to be much more organic than this kind of a look right here, so if that's your concern.
I got you.
In fact, we'd also like to even consider maybe some panels instead of just vertical members too. Because there's places where you won't even see it. You'll be on the pool deck, you'll look down, and because it drops off so much, you'll barely see the fencing, but it's required by law. So.
Yeah, thanks. Can I, yeah, I'll save it.
Okay, Member John.
I think it's a beautiful design. I like it very much. I concur with the comments about the paving textures, and the drainage question was answered regarding the pool area backing up on the upslope of the pool. And staff said that the plant materials conform to this specific list for the area, so I'm okay with that. So it's good.
So I'd like to say, if there's no different comments and we all are going forward with this project, if we can make a motion with a comment that was made about the flat work, and we can actually, yes, Member Tom. Tom Jakeway.
I just had a question.
The other Tom.
Or a comment.
Yeah.
There was some discussion about the AC or equipment units adjacent to the garage area. And it looks like on the plan that right now there is an encroachment of the garage into the side yard setback. I'm looking at sheet A 0.1?
The roof eave does project into the side yard setback, but that's a permitted type of projection. But the garage and carport itself are within the setback lines.
Okay, so there would be enough room there. My concern is there's enough room to locate them in that area.
Correct.
And then also there's, I believe it's indicated as a fire access. My guess is that's just a open area. It's not a really defined path.
Let me pull the site plan down so we can look at the area you're looking at. Hold on.
You can even see it here on the landscape plan. And then the third comment was, I appreciate the minimalism in the landscape design, but I think there could be some additional tree forms. It's tough with these developments. It's so beautiful and open, and you want to keep it. But as one home goes in and the next home goes in, I think there's going to be some desire to have some filters, views of the homes. And particularly on this, I thought, and I'll probably answer my own question, it's kind of the northwest corner. There's like a corner glass that probably has a view up into the canyon or something. But it just feels like it needs some type of open or lacy type tree over, you know, and it could be set where it doesn't impair the view, but to kind of anchor that,
Corner.
so it would be the northwest side of the house.
Do you want to see that elevation, Tom?
If you could pan over to that corner, that was the other area I was thinking that. So I think, you know, as long as staff reviews these AC units and there is enough screening and setback from the property line side, I think that's going to be important. It would be that far.
This one. Is this the one you're speaking of?
Yes, yes, somewhere. The landscape plan does show one tree kind of midway along that side towards the rear yard, but perhaps in that other upper corner.
Here.
There's one there, and then I would just ask the applicant if they've reviewed the opportunity over a little bit more towards the front of the house.
Can you?
Okay. All right, we're thinking the same then. All right. I think it might help. You know, we don't want to block any views, but I think you may want some sun control in that area at some point too.
Okay, so we'll add it to our list of conditions. Okay, member Tom Jakeway.
I question the reality of putting the pool equipment and the mechanical equipment under the bedroom, because I know in the AC condensers, there's going to be blowback if the roof is just 3 or 4 feet above the unit, and I don't think that's going to physically work. And from the pool equipment, you're going to have flues and vents. I think in reality, it probably will, as time comes together, end up in a walled service yard on the side. There's plenty of space to do it. I just think I'd like to see it if they're going to move the equipment out from there.
Okay, so I think there's the issue about the concrete finish on the flat work. There's the issue about the final location of the mechanical units. There's the issue about the additional tree on the northwest corner that probably got dropped out and needs to be included back in. And I feel like I'm not, and then the pool fencing. But I think we're all unanimous to feel that you have done a spectacular job. All these 4 issues that that we put in the conditions, you're gonna do another spectacular job in placing it right, that you're not gonna just put it on top of the roof and then we're all gonna be disappointed. So we're simply stating these things so that you take into consideration where the final position would be, and that the staff is well aware that we want it to be in keeping with what you have already created. that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion? Member Tom Jakeway.
I move that we approve this project and send it on to the Planning Commission with the small handful of conditions that Maria has listed.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any comments from the committee that we'd like to go on record?
One question.
Yes, Member John.
Yes.
Member Tom Jakeway.
I also have a question for staff. Could we get a definition from the building department as to what they'll accept for a pool fence? Will stacked boulders be acceptable, or do people walk over those so it doesn't really qualify?
I think it's more the health
I
department.
can tell you, were you going to say something?
No,
here?
you go ahead.
I'm going to say that it's a building and life safety code, and it's 5 foot high and non-climbable. And I mean, with certain projects, we've really tried to beg and plead and twist their building department's arm into believing that a 5 or 6 foot high boulder wall is non-climbable, and sometimes we get away with it, and sometimes we don't.
I think also our concern is that as the Desert Palisade continues coming up with the new projects, so far every one of them, they have no neighbors whatsoever. But, you know, within few, we're going to start seeing neighbors. So I think one of the members mentioned it's great when you're the first one, but then after that, when the second one shows up, and then we have these 10-foot glass exposed windows, and all you're going to do is cover it with curtain at all time, then we're fighting for these views when in reality you only lived to enjoy it for when your house was built. So I think we have to start seeing within context and you know what the next homes are coming up next to these ones.
I was concerned about that as well. That was why I had them do that west elevation and the view from the lot above. So I had a sense of that.
Okay, all right.
Oh, Madam Chair, back to the question of Member Jackway. I think we might need to go back to the building official to have an opinion on that, because it is a state law to have fencing around the pool. And your question is more relative to the material, right? You mentioned using boulders as if it's an acceptable form of fencing around the pool, if I'm correct.
Well, yes, and on the previous home that we saw a couple sessions ago, they were talking about using natural boulders set away from the pool as their fencing, and I think we're going to get that proposal on many of the projects in this development. So I just want to make sure it's something we can accept so that we aren't fooled or surprised later on when they come and say, oops, we have to build a concrete block wall.
Okay. We will explore, I'm sorry.
No, I think to add to the concern is that because the boulders are more organic and more in keeping with the site, we are more open to accept that. And then what happens is that the inspector from the health department comes out and says, this is not acceptable, and then we see this metal tubular fence around these $4, $5, $6, $8 million homes to just satisfy that correction. And that's when the whole aesthetic just, that's why we want to be able to have the director of the building department be able to make a more informative decision of what he could accept or not. And it plays in all many different ways, because you can have the site that drops drastically and then the fence is like 50 feet away, and then they will count that to be the fence. So there's many different factors affecting this, but the aesthetics is really what is going to govern for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have Mr. Lyon, who's the most knowledgeable on this with this specific plan area, to follow up with Mr. Zicaro, and we'll provide you those information at your next hearing.
Very good. Another comment by Member Tom.
The design guidelines for this project were online?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
If you go under the planning homepage on the city's website and you go to specific plans, you'll find the Desert Palisades specific plans in its entirety there. The design guidelines are there, the landscape palette is there, everything is there.
Do you know if there is a minimum standard of how many trees per site there is to be? Did they
There wasn't a standard in terms of quantity. What the guidelines did is find plant material that was generally indigenous to the Chino cone alluvial fan, or that which would be considered normal that you would find in that kind of an area. But they didn't set forth any kind of a quantifiable landscape plan. It was really one of making sure that that when you looked up across the alluvial fan, you weren't seeing these, I think the word in the specific plan is actually green scars that would be caused by an unnatural collection of trees that wouldn't normally be found up there. We have a little bit of a problem in some of the common areas right now up by the water tanks, in which the Desert Water Agency did not follow the approved landscape plan, and we're going to be dealing with them with that.
So what happens with that area? Because I happened to drive by that last week and saw what they did around those water tanks, and
stay tuned, I don't know.
oh, I see.
But I think Chairwoman Song brought up a good point. As these homes start to go in, there's going to be some desire for some screening or filtering the views, and you know, having the homes being kind of nestled in, and it could be, you know, natural trees, or a lot of the desert trees, desert willows lose their leaves, so you still have your views. So, but I think it's going to, otherwise it's going to be, you know, this field of homes.
Yeah.
And I think someplace there's needs to be kind of a balance between that. So I didn't know if we were out of line asking for additional materials in terms of forms or natural landscape trees.
I don't think we were out of line.
One quick.
Yes, Member Kenny.
Something that I don't remember seeing, if not in a very long time, is the rendering that showed how the property fit under the envelope coming down the hillside. And I thought that was really, really helpful. I don't remember ever seeing anybody present that.
Other applicants have shown it, but it's just a simple line, where this one actually took the entire contour and then took it out. So
I thought that was a very helpful illustration. So I wanted
if anybody wants to present, set the bar.
Right, exactly. That's the presentation to follow. The other question I had was, at the last meeting I had asked Flynn if he knew anything about the Welcome to Palm Springs sign on North Indian Canyon that disappeared. And I went back up afterwards to make sure I wasn't imagining things. And the sign is indeed gone and replaced by one of the Center Island signs, the new ones. But you encounter that first as you come into town, so you might not notice it. Then you get to where the old sign used to be, and you notice that it's gone. So I didn't know if Flynn had brought it up with Edward or Ken at all, if anybody knows what happened there, who approved that, and where the sign might have gone, if it still exists.
I don't know.
Because I think that's a piece of Palm Springs history. It would be nice to save. That was the last original sign that I'm aware of.
Those entry signs, the smaller ones and the medians, were done through Public Works, and I think we can probably find out from a conversation with Marcus Fuller.
Yeah, because it'd be nice to know if they dismantled the old one and threw it away, or if it still exists somewhere. I think that might be worth saving.
Try to find out.
If it can be.
Flynn may already be working on that, and he comes back tomorrow, so I will remind him if there's any new information. I'll probably have him email that information to you and the rest of the members.
It's the preservationist in me that obviously is saying, hey, what happened to the last original sign, and can we recover it somewhere and do something with it? Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Comments from staff to us? No? Okay, so having said that, is 4:32 and we're adjourned.